Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case.
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Louise Dentice. Louise is head of bids and proposals at Chapman BDSP and is also the research and resources lead on Women in Bids and Proposals Committee. An APMP Global Top 40 Under 40 Award recipient, Louise holds APMP Practitioner Certification and APM Project Management Certification, in addition to business, marketing, and design tertiary qualifications. Louise has been working in the bids and proposal positions for 11 years, with a further 10 years in marketing prior to that. Her bid track has been gained in the built environment sector, working with project management, contractor, and engineering firms. Projects secured include international, large-scale, high-profile developments through to niche boutique schemes across the spectrum of clients. Louise is from Auckland, New Zealand, and has been based in London for nearly 12 years. Alongside a bid career, Louise is a sculptor, regularly exhibiting internationally with a recent exhibition in Tokyo, Japan, and an upcoming show in Birmingham, UK. Louise, I prefer to talk more about the sculptor part, but Ashley will talk about it. Welcome to Scribble Talk, Louise. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Louise, let's go back to the very beginning. Where were you born and the high school and education? You could use the, what's the Maori because it's you speaking.
So I was born in Waitakere, which is in West Auckland in the North Island of New Zealand. I grew up in the Waitakere Ranges, which is basically a rainforest with amazing wild coastal beaches, and it's only about half an hour drive to the centre of Auckland, but New Zealand is a very small place, so very privileged to grow up in such an area of natural beauty. From a very young age, I was interested in art and design and pursued those subjects at school, along with English and history and classical studies and so forth. So always sort of a very much an arts focused education is what I pursued. And as you said, I am a sculptor, and I actually did a Bachelor of Design degree, but I majored in 3D design and sculpture. And following that, I've done postgraduate studies in business and marketing, amongst other things. So that's a wrap up of my education background there.
Nice. How was it growing up in New Zealand?
Oh, I mean, I had interesting childhood where, you know, we didn't do these sorts of overseas trips that everybody over here in the UK seems to do. Our sort of holidays were camping trips into the native forest bush areas, lots of time at the beach, very, I guess, outdoorsy. Not a lot of things to do in New Zealand, though. We didn't, you know, we had one movie cinema that didn't actually come into my area until I was in my early teens. So I think that's why so many of my friends pursued creative hobbies. So a lot of my friends, musicians, photographers, artists, because you just had to make your own fun.
Totally. 3D sculpting, you know, it's very, very specific. Louise, why did you pick up sculpting as your studies?
It's hard to explain, I guess, but I always made things from a really young age before I even went to school. So I always knew that I wanted to make art, that I wanted to be an artist, and that was just ingrained in me, really. So from an early age, I was drawing, painting, carving, making jewelry, making books, writing, illustrating. It was just everything that I'd always done. So I just always knew that I wanted to go to art school.
Got it. Is there anything memorable that you think now, that's one thing which I'm really proud that I did when I was young? Anything comes to your mind?
Oh gosh, proud. I guess I'm proud that I pursued my passion, and proud that I've found a career pathway that actually brings together all my skill sets, because I think one of my strengths as a BIDS professional is my creative thinking, creative problem solving, and that I've utilized all the aspects of my interests and brought them together in my role, and every day there's not a single it's almost like I have two parallel careers, because I do have this active art career. It's very hands-on, and it's very different to sitting at a computer every day, but they really inform each other. So I guess I'm proud that I've sort of not given up on any of my dreams. Instead, I've brought them together and I let them inform each other.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's amazing, Louise. So once you finished your studies, what was your very first job?
So I worked for a designer who was making homewares. He was making sort of lamps and vases and plates and things like that out of ceramic and resin and all sorts of things like that. So I was a production assistant, and alongside that I was also, because I was straight out of art school, I was exhibiting a lot with my my friends that I met at art school, and we were holding exhibitions and we were organising them ourselves. So that's, I guess, how I got into marketing, because I was working for this this designer, and he wasn't really into marketing. He didn't know how to promote himself. He was making and selling into shops. So as part of my design degree, I did undergraduate studies in hypermedia, so website design, visual communication, which is essentially graphic design. So I did have this other set of design skills. So I brought that to my role, where I was working in actual production, 3D homewares. But I helped him to build up his marketing, and then alongside that, making sculpture, organising these exhibitions where we were, fresh out of art school. We didn't have names for ourselves. So I was designing the flyers, designing the exhibition invites, designing the catalogues, doing the promotion. And that's how I got into marketing. And my next move from there was getting a studio at an arts sort of cultural hub. And I had been working in the studio there. I was then invited to run art classes. And from there, they saw my marketing skills, and I started doing the advertising, design, and then they actually brought me on as permanent member of staff, doing their marketing, and I worked my way up into marketing manager at that role for an art gallery. So yeah, it's always these two sets of skills and these parallel careers feeding each other.
Got it. And sculpting to marketing, you then relocated to London 12 years ago. What made you move to London, Louise?
So I actually, it was in 2010. So just on coming up 12 years ago that we moved. So my husband and I moved, and I guess New Zealand, as beautiful as it is, it's quite an isolated country on the other side of the world. There's not a lot of opportunity to travel, and it's far away from everything. So you sort of have to save up and use all your annual leave just to go on one little trip. And I guess the appeal of coming over here was that access to to experience different countries and to travel. That was the real draw. And sort of was getting to an age where it was sort of like the now or never sort of thing. So yeah, that was the real motivator, and as it turned out, there was just a lot of opportunity over here that New Zealand, being such a small place, didn't really offer the same opportunities.
Totally. How was it? Was it an initial shock, which is London could be really intense, really busy?
Yeah.
How did you settle down?
Yeah, no, there was definitely a settling in period. I think if I had done it when I was in my early 20s, it would have been a different story. But when you're a bit older and you do a move like that, and you don't have your home comforts, it can be a shock to the system. So there was definitely a settling in period, and there was definitely times where, London felt really big, really busy, and it sort of takes you some time to find your place in it. But what I've found is that London is little pockets of little communities, and once you find a community, you're fine. But if you treat it like it's this big thing, then you will feel quite overwhelmed by it, I think.
100%. That's brilliant, Louise. So, Louise, you came to UK, you had marketing, sculpting background. What brought you into the proposal industry?
So, yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking back on that today when I was sort of thinking about how I might respond to some of these questions. And just prior to moving over here, I had been working at the university in a business development arm where I was project managing publications. So I was doing the layout design, I was doing some of the marketing, I was doing e-learning, designing e-learning modules. It was just one of these roles where I was just like, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. So it just sort of grew to encompass all these things. So they'd put me on project management training, and I was running small events for them as well. I say small, but up to 500 people. And even when I was at the art gallery, at the art centre, and doing their marketing, I ran events for up to 5,000 people. So like children's art fairs and so forth. So that's the other set of skills that I sort of brought into my arsenal, was project management and events management. So when I was thinking back at the art gallery, I was putting in funding applications. Because we're a charity, I was putting in funding applications to get funding to run these projects. When I was working for the university, we were doing government funded research. So every year I'd have to put together submissions to get our funding renewed. Now, when you think about it, those are bids, right? They're tenders. You're in competition, and I didn't really think about it at the time, but probably I was through art submissions, funding submissions. I've probably been working on tenders for a bit longer than I thought initially. So when I came to the UK, after spending all my savings traveling around Europe for a few months, I signed up with a temping agency, and the first role that they put me in was as a PA temp at Mace. And so Mace are a project management, construction management company, and I was literally in there for 2 days, and somebody came up to me and said, you've got marketing experience, you work in InDesign, you work in a project management background, you do publication layout design, you need to go and talk to the bid team. And I said, what is that? I've never heard of bids before, like as a thing, as a profession. And they said no, and they sent me down to the bid team. So within a couple of days, my 4-day contract had been extended to a month. That got extended. I became a permanent member of the bid team as a bid coordinator just a few months later, and then basically, because of my experience, got promoted really quickly to bid manager, because I'd already had management positions and obviously had the project management, the marketing, the layout design, and the writing ability. It was basically everything come together in one role for the first time. So in my previous role, where to keep me sort of satisfied. I just, said, okay, website, give it to me, marketing, give it to me, publication design, run event, yeah, give that to me. I just sort of kept doing more different things to keep me, to kind of utilize my skills. But when I came over to the UK for the first time in a bid role, all of those skill sets came together in one role, if that makes sense.
Totally. I think you have, unintentionally, you have been building the blocks towards your successful bidding career.
Yeah.
Career.
Yeah, totally.
So now you know how to run a bid. Do you remember your very first bid, and how was it?
I'm not sure if I remember the very first bid. I fed into a lot of bids initially, part of a big team at Mace. But there are a few that stand out for sure. So we worked on really big international, exciting, high-profile programs of work. So large sports events, arenas, and quite high pressure ones, and airports, tenders. So very kind of high profile, which was really interesting, because these were landmarks or businesses that you will see in the media in your everyday life, and you have this little insight into what they're trying to achieve, and it's interesting, but a lot of challenging criteria there. So I do remember many a late night in the office there, and that was when I was sort of, I guess they call it cutting my teeth in the bid profession. So going through the paces and improving myself.
That's nice, Louise. That's nice. So over the years, you might have done multitude of proposals in the built environment. Any top interesting, memorable proposals comes to mind, both good and bad?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I can't talk about details of a lot of them because they're under strict NDAs, but there was a large UK transport provider, shall we say, and a hugely complex RFP. It was one of these that you work on for 3 or 4 months, and they required 135 CVs in a very specific format. So I was running that bid, and the way I ended up setting it up was setting up a long table, getting about 5 or 6 people, setting up a template, and we had slots for people across the business to come sit opposite us for 10 minutes, answer our questions. We filled in the template, passed the piece of paper back to somebody who would type it up, and we just set up this big what do you call it, like a manufacturing process, if you like. And we did that all day just to get the 135 unique CVs, which were specific to that client, set up and produced. So that's something that stands out for sure.
100%. I think every big teaches us something, Louise. I'm glad that you had a lot of experience. Louise, at what point in your bidding career you came across APMP as an industry body?
I guess I became aware of APMP just a couple of years into working on bids, because I think I was looking towards training and what training was available, and I realised that there was a whole bid sector out there that I wasn't sort of engaged with, and that there were people like me everywhere. And so I became interested in, I guess it was more the kind of community networking aspect of it that I was initially drawn to, that sort of support network. But I didn't become a member until I joined ChapmanbdsP, because they pay for the membership and the training and so forth. So they were very supportive of my professional development plan, and APMP was part of that for me.
Nice. So you also won APMP 40 under 40, and you've also progressed and you are a practitioner accredited. Talk us through your certification journey and also winning the APMP 40 under 40 award, Louise.
Okay, so yes, so the first stage of the APMP certification sort of breezed through that, because I think if you are somebody who's got a project management background and you've been working in bids for a while, it's quite logical. It's quite logical. It makes sense. It just sort of formalizes the process that you know and follow. And I'd worked for organisations which were pretty mature in that regard. And when I joined Chapman BDSP, I wanted to set up the systems in that way. So I've very much built those systems up at Chapman BDSP to follow that APMP best practice model. And to be honest, I didn't actually go for my practitioner level until last year. So I left it a good 7 years or so between certifications, and I probably should have done it sooner, but I was just busy. And yeah, I've got to say it was much harder than I thought at the practitioner level. I think there's a lot of useful information in there and a lot of useful information in the book, which is the body of knowledge, sorry, and lots of things to take on board in terms of ideas. But I found it was quite, the thing that I found it hard is that when you're very established in your career and in the sector that you work in and the type of bids that you deliver, you know what works and you know what works for you. And a lot of the certification is about theory and the best practice ideal, and it's got to cover people who work from IT through to people who work in the built environment, people who work for pension schemes through to people who work for, you know, a security company. It's got to be that broad, and I understand that, but you're sort of grappling with okay, what they say on paper should be the right thing to do in the right process, I know isn't what I need to do in my day-to-day to get the information I need for the type of bids I produce in my sector, if you see what I mean. So there was a bit of a disconnect where you're like, okay, I just have to pass, I have to follow what the theory says, not what I know to be how I work, if that makes sense.
100%. That's always been an interesting dilemma. I mean, like, especially in the certification things of, you know, the world of APMP's best practices to the world of realism. It's kind of, there is a distance in. So I always tell people, you're not here to rewrite the syllabus of APMP.
Yeah.
The certification. So unlearn as much as you learn. And that's the challenge. Thank you for sharing that, Louise. I think at some point, both will converge in the right direction, but we'll see, because every bid, every sector, every geography is unique.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to have one syllabus that suits everybody, but that's a nice one. I think we talked about your early life career, move to London, marketing, bids, built environment, APMP. Talk us about women in bids and proposals.
So where did that journey start? So I had seen through LinkedIn Charlotte Rees, who founded Women in Bids and Proposals, advertised an event in London, and I think it might have been the very first one. And I thought, well, I'll go along to this. So, you know, I was looking for networking events and connecting with people who sort of do the same role as me. So I went along and I met Charlotte and met some of the other girls, and I just thought, well, it's really neat, an idea. It offers something that APMP doesn't offer. It's more on that community level, whereas APMP is more certification, higher level conferences and education, whereas this felt more of a support network. And I liked that idea. I liked and I just thought it had heaps of potential. So I talked to Charlotte and I just said, look, is there any way that I might be able to, you know, support you to help move things forward? And I talked to my employer, and they agreed to host a Women in Bids and Proposals event. So we sponsored that. I spoke at it, my boss spoke at it, We had a networking event, and that year, or around that time, was the time that both Charlotte and I both got the APMP 40 Under 40 award. So we were both awardees at the same time. And on the back of that, that's what really got us getting to know each other. And then she invited me to be a member of the committee. So so over the last couple of years, that has evolved a lot, from being fairly ad hoc to getting to the point where during lockdown we started to hold events and realised that actually people were joining from all over the world, and we used that as an opportunity to really kind of formalise some of our internal roles and objectives. So we did a rebrand last year, or was it the year before? Gosh, lockdown is difficult to keep pace when things happened. It was at that time where we sort of reset our objectives, we relaunched our website, we rebranded, we looked at our values and vision, and that's when we sort of fleshed out what the roles that each of us would be playing. So my role is research and resources lead, which is basically about, you know, doing that research, making sure we're getting the data that we need from our members, but also, you know, from the wider sector and community, to make sure that we're benchmarking that what we're trying to achieve, and also providing resources for our members. Say, for instance, following an event, I'll put together a crib sheet which has links to further information, as an example, and I contribute to posts and writing. And we recently worked with Bid Solutions and did a takeover of the Bid Quarterly number 11, I think it was, which was around gender equality.
Wow, gender equality, what a topic. Suddenly you get all the posts about gender and it's all forgotten, and next year we continue to do the same. But I'm glad the initiative that you, Charlotte, and the rest of the team started is a source of inspiration for the next generation and also for the current generation. Louise, Charlotte, I think I'm sure she's listening. Continue to inspire, Louise, and that's great. So before I hand over you to Ashley, talk us through the 3 things not many people know about you, Louise.
Well, they probably all do now because it was part of my intro, but I'm a sculptor. So working primarily in small handheld bronze and also in ceramics, which I make quite larger ceramics. I am on the Council for the British Art Medal Society Council. I'm on the Medal Artists of New Zealand committee. So medal art is one of the things that I do, which is so obviously that you've got medals that we're all familiar with, like Olympic medals. The sorts of medals I make are what is called art medals, and they've been made since the Renaissance. They're commemorative, so commemorative medals, for want of a better word. So as well as working and doing more sculptural bronze and ceramic pieces, I make these art medals. And as I said, I'm on the council in New Zealand and the British Art Medal Society Council, and I'm also part of the International Federation of Medal Makers. Currently got an exhibition on in South London at Fisher Court Gallery, and that is also part of a charity auction raising funds for endangered species. So I have a little piece in that, which is a little hazel dormouse that's currently up for auction. And if you want to look at that, it's on my Instagram page, which is just my name, and Louise Dentice artist. I've just, as you said, just had an exhibition in Tokyo, Japan at the end of last year, one up in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, the current one in London, and I've got the next one coming up is in Florence in Italy, and that is next year, I think, or the year after. So I guess that covers a few things that people didn't know about me, potentially.
Totally. I think looks like you travel, you make sculpting, and you just do a lot more, Louise. I think looks like the exciting part just comes now. Please, Ashley. Thank you, Louise.
Oh my goodness, Louise, that's amazing. I can't believe you find time to do all of that while, pursuing bids and proposals.
I think it just comes down to, prioritizing, isn't it? Like, just working out what it is that where you want to put your time, and making sure you make time for it. It's not always easy, but
yeah, absolutely. So you told us a little bit about that auction piece, and it sounds beautiful. Are there any other pieces that you're quite proud of? Any that stand out to you?
I did a body of work a few years ago that in ceramic, which was large, whimsical yet scary bird pieces in ceramic, which I think probably one of the bodies of work I'm most proud of. Yeah, I'm not sure. Every time you do something, it evolves. So it's just this. There's never a piece that I've made in the past that I look on and go, that's the best I can do. It's this journey. You're always changing what you like, you're experimenting, you're trying new things. So most of the time I look back on stuff I've done and go,
Yeah, definitely. So have you seen, kind of an evolution in the themes of the types of works that you put out as, you kind of experience new things in life?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I guess as I've got older, I've become more, politically aware. And I think, when you work in bids, it's difficult to ignore it because you're at the forefront of, what your clients want from you. So when you start to see these things around diversity, inclusion, social value, and our responsibility as businesses, but as people, to contribute positively back to the community, that sort of translates. I think that aspect has translated to other parts of my life as well, where I'm like, as a maker of things, I feel like I have a responsibility to be making other people think carefully about what they're doing and how they're having an impact on the world around them. So one of the recent pieces I did, which was in Tokyo, which was a large art medal, I became concerned around, making art medals, the theme was around, sort of, it's difficult to explain because it's a Maori term, but it's around beautiful environments or a beautiful places, like celebrating New Zealand as a beautiful place. And there was a group of us exhibiting, and I thought, well, how can we celebrate New Zealand as a beautiful place when New Zealand is not exempt from the climate crisis? There's just as many concerns. So what I did was, like a coin, I put the carbon value of the medal making process on the back of the medal. So it became yes, you've got this beautiful thing, but actually the whole process of making the medal, of mining the metal, of melting the bronze, that's not an environmentally friendly process. So,
right, yeah.
And that's what medals allow you to do. You've got the positive and negative side, like you can present both sides, which is what I like about the medals. So, yeah, and I think that was, directly informed by the work that I do, the company that I work for. I was able to get help with the data collection around the process by one of the environmental consultants I work with, but also it's just in working with bids, because it's at the forefront, isn't it? Like, everybody wants to know, what are your environmental credentials as a company? How are you working towards minimizing environmental impact? So yeah, I think all of these things just cross over and inform each other.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're able to have such an impactful voice through both your proposal efforts, but as well as through your art making.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you mentioned your Instagram account. If people are curious to take a look at some of your medals and your art, do you post other pictures? You mentioned the one, but are there other ones up there?
Yeah. No, it's an account that I use for my art making. So it's Louise Dentice _artist. I think I'm the only one with my name out there, so it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to check that out for sure. Well, that's been fascinating to hear about. We're going to pivot over into our rapid fire questions round, also known as the Nutters round after Howard Nutt. No right or wrong answer. First thing that comes to mind. And if you don't really have an answer, we can just pass, no worries. All right. So can you name your favorite movie and why is that your favorite?
Oh gosh, I am so rubbish with movies. I don't retain the information about them, and I can watch something multiple times and forget that I've even watched it again. So movies for me is not the right the right creative outlet.
Understand. Are you a morning or a night person?
Night.
Who haven't you seen or talked to in a long time and hope they're doing okay?
Lots of people back in New Zealand. It's difficult, really difficult to keep in touch with people when you've got a 12-hour time difference. So, and lots of people, old friends aren't on social media. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that I miss, especially over the last couple of years where I've not been able to get back and travel. So it doesn't directly answer your question, but yeah, there's a lot of people that spring to mind.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's been tough, particularly with the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
Name one thing that drives you crazy.
Lots of things. Now I've been in London ages. When people are walking really slowly around like the business areas, like around like Liverpool Street, when everybody else is in a hurry to get somewhere, and I never want to be one of those people, but it does actually hurt me now. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good one. So do you have a best friend?
I've got several best friends. I guess my husband is probably my bestest friend.
Oh, that's a great answer. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Daniel, he and I have known each other since we were teenagers. He actually used to live over here when he was a kid, but he is New Zealand born. He is a very clever engineer, and he plays guitar and bands, and he makes amplifiers, and he's very creative as well. So we've just got lots of hobbies, and we have a lot of fun. We into the same music, and we just have a lot of fun together.
Oh, that's lovely. What is the last gift that you gave someone?
Oh, last gift I gave somebody. Oh, I sent my friend in New Zealand a cookbook for her birthday. Yeah.
Oh, how nice. What is the last thing you watched on TV and why did you choose that?
Married at First Sight Australia. It's terrible, I know, but it is kind of addictive. Yeah. How embarrassing.
Oh, no, not at all. So you're chosen to make dinner for a very special guest. Who would you invite and what would you cook?
A very special guest. Anyone? Oh. Can I fly them over from the other side of the world as well?
Absolutely.
It's hard to name just one person. Those people I haven't seen in a while, I would love to get them over here. I'd love to show them where I lived and what my life was like now, and yeah, just do a big roast or something. I don't know.
That sounds amazing. What would be the hardest thing for you to give up?
Art making.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What is the most interesting place you've ever been to?
I find everywhere interesting and fascinating. I think every place I go to has just even, I don't know, I find everything interesting. Oh, I don't know. Everywhere, everything. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. I couldn't pin it on one place. I just like exploring. I like new experiences. I like meeting people from all different backgrounds, and I just think that even a petrol station, I think is something super interesting. I'm fascinated by how people act in different spaces and how people, like how people sit in an airport waiting lounge and waiting for that next adventure, and how it's just a holding place for the next thing and isn't really a place in itself. Do you know what I mean? Like it's everything I find interesting. Yeah. It's just the way my mind works, I think.
It's the artist in you. You just see the beauty in everything. So what is the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten?
I mean, I find oysters very weird to eat. It's not the most unusual food I know, but I find the whole experience of it very, very weird. I mean, I've eaten insects and things like that, which is the growing trend, isn't it? But yeah, things that are slimy and squishy and pop in your mouth, no, I don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me that you would choose oysters over, say, insects.
Well, they're crunchy and they're cooked and they don't really taste like a lot, really.
Yeah.
They're just like, it's just eating a I don't know, cricket or whatever it is that they have, like Mexican food is basically like having a peanut with the skin on, like a bit bitter but it's cooked, right? Like it. Yeah, no, raw fish related foods like oysters and mussels. No, can't do it.
Yeah. So who are the people who've been the most influential in your life and career?
Again, it's a lot of people at different stages of my life. I'd say like my grandma, although she died when I was 4, was really, really influential in fostering my interest in art. Like I've got some really strong memories around her and playing with watercolors with her, and she collected lots of miniatures of things, so miniature vases and stuff like that, and I've got and I was given a lot of them when she died, and I coveted I've coveted things like that throughout my life, and I think that's my attraction to working on small handheld sculptures actually comes from that. But she was always very encouraging and was quite artistic herself, so I think that was an early influence that sort of set me on that path. And an aunt who's not a blood relative, but who was an artist, who is an artist actually, and she was always supportive and encouraging and quite inspiring as well. So I think, I was lucky to have those family members. And then throughout my career, I think I've just been privileged to work with some people who were just forward thinking and, turned my attention to different areas. People in all of these art groups that I'm part of that are inspiring and talented.
Yeah, it sounds like so many great people around you. What is one personal trait that you like most about yourself?
Oh gosh. I guess it's creativity. I think, like just and maybe I guess I've got a bit of tenacity. Like I don't give up on things. I try to push things forward. I know what I want and I go after it, and I pursue things even when I hit brick walls, you know, like I guess that is something that I'm proud of and that I like about myself.
Oh, definitely. And those are definitely important traits in our professions, as well as in art, right?
Yeah.
What have you observed lately in these COVID times that has reminded you that people are kind?
Oh, I think I was just blown away by how communities came together to offer support, and how when people were faced with these challenges, how they became so creative and imaginative about how they found different solutions for their businesses. So from the pubs that you were like, okay, well, we're not operating our restaurants, but we've got all these suppliers and they need to sell their produce, and we've got people who can't get to the supermarket, so we'll let them order from us and they can come and pick up their veggie boxes from pub. You know, like it was just things like that I thought, that's people being responsive, and they're working within the parameters that they've got. And I sometimes think that forces you to be more creative. Like when I work, one of the things I like about making medals is they've got to be two-sided, they've got to have lettering on them, they've got to have a rim, and they must be under 150 mils, right? So there's these strict parameters, and people think, doesn't that limit you? And it's like, no, you get these parameters and then you can just interpret within that so many different things. Like it's actually, it's not endless, but it is, you know, I don't know, I think sometimes having parameters forces you to think differently.
Oh, definitely. And I can just see all the parallels to bids and proposals when you're describing those parameters, but how you can be so creative and do things within those.
Yeah.
So what is one common myth about our profession that you'd like to debunk?
Common myth. Gosh, there's a lot of myths. A lot of them are true though, aren't they? I think, I guess one of the most common myths is that it's not family friendly, and that it's, you know, the long hours, the hard slog is part and parcel. I don't think it has to be that way. I think all of us working in the bid profession, we can help reset that. We've got to just set our own parameters for what we are able to do, and people have to fall in line. We can't let people, you know, compromise us, otherwise we won't have a profession. People won't stay in a profession that's like that. Balance is really important. So yeah, the myth that, you know, when I first got into bid, somebody said to me, it's a 2-year career. People get in, they work hard, they make a bit of money, and they leave again. And I just think, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to work around the clock. But to change those cultural practices within workplaces, you have to work really hard at establishing what your, I keep saying parameters, but what they are, you know, and you can't compromise. And I find, like, you know, it's unavoidable sometimes, right? That you have to work late, but I always do it on my terms. And I think when you've been doing things as long as I have, you do risk assessments, and you can see when something is actually going to be like, you know what, I think because of a number of factors, I need to plan to be able to come in early that day to top and tail this, you know, and if you can't, you make sure that there's other resource to be able to do it. I think that probably just comes with experience, but you've always got to do it on your terms, and if it doesn't work for you, then we've got to come up with another solution, you know, like it's just not, it just doesn't have to be the way.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a great point, and having those boundaries and being able to know when overtime is required and getting ahead of the such important skills.
I just think that it's something that you can't, I think that that's one of the things we have to come together as a profession to do, because if you're not willing to do it and the workplace cultures doesn't change, you move on, they'll get somebody else in, and if that person is willing to do it, it just keeps the whole thing going again. I think it's something we have to be really united on and go, you know, just because we're in bids, it doesn't mean we're available 24/7.
Definitely. So what advice, other than what you just expressed there, would you give your fellow bid and proposal professionals?
I guess, yeah, be organized, can take control, be proactive, like, you know, just, I think that's why being successful of us, of established a way of working and managing proposals, and I stick by it, and I educate people about what that is, and I bring them into the fold. But at the end of the day, I own it, you know, and I think when you own it and you stand by it and you stand by the work you produce, and I don't know, it just sets you on a pathway, I think, for your development, for feeling proud about what you're producing, because you're actually directly involved in impacting it. I think if you don't own it, if you're always that person who's just waiting for that stuff to be fed in and not checking it, and not that gateway keeper, you'll only ever go so far, and you'll only ever feel so satisfied with what you're doing. I just think, you know, like, just get in and give it all you can, like, you know. But I don't know. I don't really know.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying, and it's great advice for sure. So Louise, what is next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Gosh, I think, I mean, honestly, after the last couple of years, and we're just sort of starting to get some stability back, I feel like it's a bit of a reset, you know, time to reset and look at priorities going forward. I've actually just bought a house, so just trying to renovate that and get, I don't know, just I feel like I just need to not muddle on, but yeah, I don't feel like I want to make any big moves or changes. I just feel like I've got to reset and like embed again, and then take stock and work it out. I feel like it's just been so up and down the last few years, you know, that it's just time to sort of think about, all right, like, let's just get home sorted. And yeah, I'm recruiting in my team at the moment, so I just want to get the team set up and embedded, and you know, I just want to settle things. I think that's what I feel like I need to do, just settle things.
Sounds so good. Well, Louise, thank you so much for your time today. It really has been a privilege to have you with us here at Scribble Talk. We wish you all the good health and happiness. Please continue to inspire bid and proposal industry colleagues and everyone else around you. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode, where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Pastor Sundram,
signing off.